This is the show that has a proven track record.
You have to connect with the fans. If you can't connect with the fans, you're never going to really have anybody on your side.
This is a show that has a real approach to sports.
They've been terrible, but now they've gotten some young players, and they're still bad right now, yeah. But they're getting better.
This is a show that's not going to give you the sweet stuff.
They're decimated with injuries. No one on that staff seems to be able to pitch right now.
This is the award-winning show that's giving you the truth, just like they always have.
What are we talking about?
Where are we at in society today?
Listen and learn.
This is Delay of Game, the Sports Talk podcast.
Welcome in to another edition of Delay of Game. Glad to have you along with us. Happy first day of spring. It's finally here. Opening day for baseball is literally 2 weeks away. Opening night, I should say. 2 weeks away from happening. We're all very excited. Ryan Swanigan with you alongside Matt Rigby. Brent Bonfleur is, ironically enough, on his way back from Las Vegas. Jessica Chamberlain is in Las Vegas for her spring break. It is the UNL spring break. So Matt's just here. I don't know why he's here. He didn't decide to go
for
off
the show.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. But I don't know why, anybody else would be sticking around here, but, it's not like it's boring or anything.
That's not true!
That is. Devin Cleach, he is also gone, too. He went home for the weekend. He's in Iowa, so he's not available, and so Brent's coming back from Vegas, so he'll be with us next week. But today, just me and Matt, and where is this? That is the summarization of basically everybody's bracket in the Delay of Game bracket challenge, and that's what we're going to start off with first before we jump into my rant. Although, if you were really, really betting on this Delay of Game bracket challenge, probably like Matt Rigby was, then you fire up the rant music with how frustrated you are, Matt Rigby's very, very upset, right?
I'm only mad about one thing because, I just checked the standings again, and I have the most possible attainable points out of the five of us. But, and this is why recording things is great, because you could play back the show from last Sunday night, and I literally said, I'll probably get burned for taking two teams to the Final Four that are perennial letdowns in Purdue and West Virginia. And, they're the epitome of letdowns in this tournament. They lose games that they absolutely should not lose.
One could say Michigan State does that every other year. It's which year is Michigan State, or what is Michigan State going to be the great team they are this year, or is it going to be the bad version?
Right, but what I was more hitting on is that, and you just said this, with Michigan State, every other year, maybe not every other year, but there are years when they are good. They go to the Final Four, they win a national championship. To me, having Purdue and West Virginia in the Final Four, I looked at it and I was like, wait, these teams literally never can make it to the Final Four. And I was like, well, I guess there's got to be a year, but it's proof. I'll never pick them to do anything ever again. I don't care if they're 32-0 and number one seeds. They're never picked to do anything ever again. Pathetic performances.
If I had a little bit more time before the show, and I guess I did, I could have done this, but I was thinking about this earlier, going back, cutting out the clip of me predicting Little Rock, Arkansas, and just playing that over and over and over again.
Right,
now,
but then you would have had to pull Brent and I playing clips. You would have had to pull our clips at Yale. We all had upsets. But...
Exactly. And that's the thing, too. That's the thing that gets me, and I'm not really that frustrated about it, just kind of like, you throw up your hands in agony. Because this year I thought, all right, I'm going with some certain upsets. I think I've got this figured out now. And I went with Little Rock, and I went with South Dakota State. And what else? I went with Temple over Iowa. And I went with I guess if you want Syracuse over Dayton. But that was basically, Northern Iowa beating Texas. I think that was pretty much it. That's all I went with. It was nothing else really that special. And then we are basically sitting here today, and in the Midwest Regional, out of that regional, there will be in the Elite Eight, competing for the Final Four, either an 11, a 15, or a 10 seed competing for a chance at the Final Four. Believe that, if you can believe that for a minute. That's amazing.
Let me say real quickly, too, the reason that I'm going to pat my own self on the back here now is the reason that I was only really mad about one thing is, if you remember when I was going up and down my first round games and really breaking down the matchups, I kept talking about how, to me, it's an analysis of conference versus conference. And we all talked about how we didn't trust the Pac-12. They got absolutely dumped on. I mean, the Pac-12 was awful in the first round. I said I liked the Big 12. For the most part, they were good. I liked the ACC. For the most part, they were good.
Oh, they were.
The Big Ten was terrible. The Big Ten was a total letdown. I mean, they only really got a win out of Maryland.
Yeah.
Wisconsin won, too, but they looked terrible in doing
Iowa. So. Believe it or
Iowa
not.
just doesn't count as a real team. But I mean, like, from the top down, like, conferences I thought we could trust, but... And that kind of played through, and so my bracket isn't terrible because of that. It's just that one situation with taking two constant letdown teams, and putting them in the Final Four was foolish.
Really, overall, I was stunned by how many seeds that were 10 or above advanced. You had Hawaii, you had Wichita State. You had you had Yale, you had Northern Iowa, you had VCU, Syracuse, Gonzaga, Little Rock. Looking up the other side in the East Regional, that's the one that was almost normal, except for SF Austin continuing its unbelievable winning streak. Everybody else was normal. That regional, the East Regional, every year there's always one regional that I do so well in. And every other one, it's just terrible. The East Regional was this year where the only one I didn't get was SF Austin because I had West Virginia, and that destroyed me pretty badly. But still, the Midwest Regional, literally half and half. I had Virginia, I had Butler, Little Rock, Iowa State. And then Iowa State and Virginia have advanced to the Sweet 16. I had that. Other side... I had Utah and Syracuse. That was it. And now I don't even have a Sweet 16 matchup anymore. Gonzaga beat Utah, and Middle Tennessee faces Syracuse, a 10 versus a 15. Just incredible. Overall, in the Delay of Game Bracket Challenge, couple of highlights here. Brent Bonfleur, of course, go figure. That sneaky guy talks very little. He's just going to do rapid fire through his bracket. He's sitting in first place. He has a score of 35. Some name by Cubs Suck, I can't possibly imagine who that would be, is in second place with a score of 33, just two behind Brent. Jessica Chamberlain with a very late push to tie me for third place. I actually was in second, dropped down to a tie for third. I'm technically fourth. We both have 30, and then Devin Cleach just behind us by 1 point. At 29.
This is what I always look at, though, because I have ran pools for 5-6 years. I mean, it's a funny story. Kids who I went to high school with always bring it up and kind of laugh about it because they remember me running around campus with looking like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to collect brackets and money from people. I mean, I would go to school and basically run. I mean, I don't know if you'd use the term illegal because it's not a law thing, but against school rules, I'd be running a gambling ring at my high school. And I mean, we'd have 50 or so people dumping in $15 to play with us. And I mean, we had coaches, we had teachers and everything. Anyway, long story short, I ran the pool all shorthand by myself. And one of the things that I always paid attention to, I mean, I would do a daily, in the first round, I do a daily bracket update or points update for everyone because, they were always curious because they had stakes in the game. Second round, and after the first round, I would do round-by-round updates. And people would always misread them because they didn't have everyone's bracket in front of them. They just had point totals. And sometimes I would have to be... I'd have to put stipulations on it for them and say, yeah, you may be in first now, but you have no teams left. So I'm looking. I appreciate that because I've never done these online. Actually, like I said, I've always done them by hand. I'm looking at the best possible column, and that's the one I'm more focused on.
Exactly.
And you and I are favored heavily.
Oh yeah.
In that column,
Yeah.
I think that because you get a point total increase with each one of these rounds.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I mean, if Brent doesn't have teams left, I never opened his bracket. Oh yeah, actually, I did. I mean, he's got Michigan State winning it all, so I just don't see him holding on.
That's the fun part that I was going to get to is that of all of the five of us, only one person has their Final Four still intact, and that is me.
Right.
Of all people,
Right.
usually it's I just, I know how good I am with this prediction stuff. I know I'm not that great or even close to great, going back to the good, great discussion with Brent. I'm not there. But to be the only person left of this challenge to have my Final Four intact is,
That's not true!
No, it is. It really is, and I can't believe that it is.
You gotta be kidding me!
Yeah. That's my response to it all. I just, it's, we'll see what happens. You go with the top dogs in college basketball right now. That's essentially what mine broke down to. Kansas, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Virginia. They're all still right there, which I just,
And allow me to make
fun matchups.
Allow me to make like a tournament observation too. Aside from everyone's bracket, I thought that there were some really monumental things that took place. I mean, it was monumental to see Michigan State lose. We all talked about how they should have been a 1 seed. And so really, you probably saw your first ever, in a quasi way, 16-1. I mean, that was a historic upset. The Northern Iowa shot obviously was great theater. Sunday's games really picked up in that they were all decided, or not Sunday, Friday's games really picked up in that they were all decided late. The Cincy St. Joe's game, the Texas Northern Iowa game, and the Notre Dame Michigan game, I mean, all three of those had huge comebacks. And it highlights, if I do circle this back now to our picks, it highlights that, all of us had Cincy not only winning round one, but I know a few of us had them beating Oregon today. Cincy has a dunk at the buzzer to send it into overtime that's disallowed because, an index finger. An index finger is still on the basketball. So, are we fools for having picked any of that? No, because they could have won. And I just think that it speaks to – this is something that sticks out to me every March, but that makes it still captivating. Because I always thought if there was a year I didn't really watch the tournament, it'd be this year. But it's still captivating that – the separation between teams, really no matter what seed they are, is paper thin this time of year. I mean, a lot of that is all the intangibles and all the unaccountable things that you just can't measure that go into these games, and that's what makes it fun. There's a real human element to March Madness.
Well, think about this. With Middle Tennessee and Michigan State, going back to the matchup analysis, and this is according to CBSSports.com, user pick for Michigan State was 99%. 1% had Middle Tennessee. You look at some of the matchup numbers, Michigan State's RPI was 12, Middle Tennessee was 78. Strength of schedule, 48 in favor of the Spartans, 151 in favor of the Blue Raiders. The were almost the same for Middle Tennessee as far as giving up points allowed and then scoring. Basically a difference of 5, 73, and we'll give them 69. So a difference of pretty much 4, I guess. Michigan State was averaging 80 a game and giving up 64. And just you just factor in all these numbers and the analysis and the picks and everything is just it outcome defies what literally 99% of people were thinking in picking Michigan State, and that I think is just the beauty of the tournament. The one other frustrating thing with this tournament, and then we'll kind of move on from this, is Gonzaga. Because Gonzaga every year is in this tournament, and they are either the 2 or the 1 a couple years back, or they're a high end seed, or they're a low end seed. And when they're a high end seed, they don't do well for whatever reason. They do not play well. They screw it up. They advance to the second round, and then they're done. This year they're the 11, and they beat Seton Hall. That's an upset. They beat Utah soundly. That's an upset. And now they're going to face either a 10 or a 15 seed to advance to the Elite 8, with a chance to advance to the Elite 8. And again, that to me, that whole bottom portion of the Midwest Regional just blows my mind, especially with Gonzaga, because you think this year, all right, well, they're not going to be that good. And other years, oh, well, they're up there. All right, let's have them go. And the outcome that we predict does not happen for whichever scenario may be surrounding Gonzaga basketball. That is the frustrating thing, yet the most intriguing thing ever, because it goes back to the unpredictability of this tournament and why there is so much draw to it. Think about how many, as I said earlier, how many 10 or higher or 10 or lower seeds advanced after the first round. You had Hawaii, Wichita State, SF Austin, Little Rock, Gonzaga, Middle Tennessee, Syracuse, VCU, Northern Iowa, freaking Yale. It's all just mind-boggling to think about, yet so awesome to watch. Because, yeah, we get all frustrated with the brackets, just getting completely destroyed and shattered and blowtorched. But it's still so much fun because we're all freaking out. Oh, my gosh, did you see Middle Tennessee? Did you see Yale? Did you see Hawaii? SF Austin, whichever team. It's just the craziness with this tournament, and that is why it will be so entertaining for so long. And I just love it. I love it so much, and I'm sure if Jessica Chamberlain were here, she would definitely second that and echo what I just said, because the draw to it with the unpredictability factor, just absolutely phenomenal. It's fantastic. So the bracket challenge continues. We'll keep you updated next week on who looks like they could be winning this thing, or if we still have a close one. I'm expecting that we'll have a close one. Go figure, it be between me and Matt Rigby. And I'm something about these Nevada people. They just know what's up. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's get into the rant. I know Matt Rigby's just going to love this one.
I'm going to sleep for this one.
It's now time for a little R&R.
Ryan's rant, that is. Back to the explosion of a topic that Ryan has in store for today's podcast.
Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Take it out!
There's something that's just really bothering the guy, and now you're about to find out what it is.
You gotta be kidding me! Nobody's tackling anybody! Do it live!
There's some absurd things going on in the world of sports, and Ryan's pretty fired up about them.
Hello? You kidding me?
They are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. That's not true!
And now, here's the original delay of game produced, Ryan's rant.
So 2 weeks ago, I listed off the 5 reasons why the Cubs will just completely flop this year and be terrible. Very legitimate reasons, I thought, and I still believe that a couple of them are real. And
before you go, because I missed that show, what do you remember the 5 reasons off the top of your head?
Oh, gosh. Injuries, I know, was one of them for sure.
They were like the healthiest team in the history of baseball.
Exactly. I'm trying to think. Too much pressure on this team to repeat what it did last year, because last year was so out of the blue, unexpected, improbable, almost impossible to finish third place, get 97 wins, and make the playoffs. That's a scenario that's very rare if it's ever happened before. Some of the high-priced contract players will not live up to the expectations. There was another reason in there I can't remember off the top of my head. And I know what reason number 5. I know what reason number 5 was. It's the Cubs, Matt.
Yeah,
it's the Cubs. This is
fair enough.
usual.
Fair enough. I was just curious.
Yeah, I thought you were here for that one too.
No.
I could have sworn you were here. Well, anyways, today, and by the way, before I go into this, I'm going to preface this by saying our good friend of the show, Michael Snow, does this every weekend for Husker football. He writes for Corn Nation and comes up with the 5 reasons Nebraska will win and 5 reasons Nebraska will lose when they take on their opponent. So I thought, well, I'm going to apply it to the team that basically controls my life for a long period of months, and we'll go into the 5 reasons why the Cubs will win the World Series. Number 1, team chemistry. Now, I said earlier that the chemistry wouldn't, be there. It wouldn't build together. That, I think, is totally inaccurate now, because you look at this team before the games of spring training began, and look at, these guys were celebrating David Ross's final season, making him ride around in a scooter, helping him out with a cane. That's Golden State Warrior chemistry-esque, if you will, however you want to phrase that. That is just like the Golden State Warriors. Messing around, having fun, staying relaxed, a nice, easy, not so tense clubhouse. That's what the Cubs are. That is what this team is right now. They are the old guard with John Lester and David Ross and John Lackey. All these old guys in there mixed with these young guys of Chris Bryant and Kyle Schwarber and Addison Russell and Javi Baez. The chemistry in that clubhouse is literally just like the Golden State Warriors locker room. Relaxed, a fun environment, and they're just going out and they're just playing the game of baseball. Now, they haven't done well in spring training, but honestly, I don't care. Thankfully, spring training doesn't really count. So the more that they can concentrate on figuring out what do we need to adjust to, what do we need to fix, what do we need to learn in order to make sure that the regular season, when those games actually start counting, what do we need to do to make sure that everything is where it needs to be when the season begins? That's what these guys are doing right now in spring training. They're hitting home runs all over the place. They're just bashing it all over Sloan Park and any other ballpark they're in, which is amazing. So team chemistry, number 1, and that probably will trump the anti-team chemistry in the reasons why the Cubs won't do well this year. The chemistry is there. The fun, relaxed, just going out and playing the game of baseball environment is with this team, and it is just awesome to watch. Reason number 2, star-studded lineup. You can't really summarize it other than that. Hayward in right, Fowler in center, Schwarber listed as the top left fielder. I believe it's Jorge Soler. We'll see what happens. Chris Bryant, Addison Russell, Ben Zobrist, Anthony Rizzo, with Javier Baez backing up the middle. Montero catching, David Ross behind him, Kyle Schwarber probably there too. Lester, Arrieta, Lackey, Hendricks, Hamill. Rondon closing, Wood, Strop, Trevor Cahill, who has just been spectacular out of the bullpen. Same with Clayton Richard. We'll see what Adam Warren does. Justin Grimm, the fireman himself, probably starting fires instead of putting them out, but I digress. It's a lineup that probably, I would have to say, outdoes the 2008 Cubs lineup, which was amazing when that baby was completed in going into June. That was a great lineup. This is better. This lineup is probably, I would say, even better than the 2004 lineup that didn't even make the postseason because they blew the month of September. But 2004 had Derek Lee, Ramos Ramirez, Alex Gonzalez, eventually Nomar Garciaparra at shortstop, Todd Walker at second. I think Michael Barrett was doing the catching as well. You had Sosa in right. You had, I think, Corey Patterson was there in center. And Moises Alou was in left. Greg Maddux, Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood. Can't remember the rest of the pitching staff. I think Matt Clement was there as well. Great bullpen until September. Again, everything just collapsed in September, which is certainly what could happen for the Cubs because, again, as I mentioned, as I just said, it's the Cubs. Anything is possible. Everything is on the table. That roster, even, if you want to throw 2003 in there too, I'd say this roster right now in 2016 is better than 08, 04, 03, 07, whatever. I'd say it's way better than any of those rosters of the years past. Though Derek Lee and Ramos Ramirez, that's very tough to beat. But honestly, I think Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo are in their own category as far as the relationship between the two hot corners. So that's reason number 2. Reason number 3, versatile options at every level. I mentioned in 2008, the Cubs had that. They had great pitching. They had a perfect closer, Kerry Wood, closing in 2008. 2004, 2003, same deal. Versatile third baseman, versatile first baseman. 1 through 3 in the pitching lineup was great. Carlos Zambrano, by the way, 03, 04, 08, 07 too. He was there through it all. This year, you have a Gold Glove caliber first baseman, shortstop for sure. Ben Zobrist can play anywhere on the field except catcher, and he probably could even pitch too. You have a Gold Glove right fielder in Hayward. Fowler can play great defense. Soler has a cannon that they move from right to left. Bryant can snag him at third. I mentioned Russell. Montero, probably one of the best veteran catchers that you could probably have in baseball. He's not that great at the plate, but his defense is superb. Same for David Ross. Kyle Schwarber can learn a lot behind the plate from those two guys alone. Rondon, who cares if he's having a bad spring? He can get it done in the regular season. We saw that last year. And then you have Lester and Lackey and Arrieta and Hendricks. Jason Hamill needs to be the Jason Hamill of the first 2 halves of the season from last year and the year before that. He is, if he can be that, he will complete that 1 through 5 pitching staff for sure. Number 4, this goes against what I said 2 weeks ago. Momentum will carry over from last year. And that kind of ties into the team chemistry aspect because they have built upon that, and that clubhouse is even more, I guess, I don't want to say fun and relaxed, but that's all I can really come up with. It's a non-hostile environment. Literally the farthest thing from a hostile environment that you can find in baseball. And a lot of these guys are back from last year. A lot of this team is intact. That team that made that postseason run is still intact. You could say they upgraded, I guess, at second base, getting Ben Zobrist. They certainly upgraded in the outfield, getting Hayward. And you add John Lackey, a veteran guy who's been around when he gets into the postseason. John Lackey is just stone cold good. And you add those pieces into momentum that's already carrying over from last year, and the fire and the passion that this team has to get back to the NLCS, to get postseason baseball back to Wrigley, to face what I think will be either the Mets or the Giants in the NLCS if the Cubs can get past the NL Division Series. You get that. If you can secure getting past the NLCS, which I know this team wants to do, they want that World Series. I'm more concerned about getting to the World Series, not winning it, just getting to it. Because if they get to it, half of the curse is already broken and wiped out right then and there. And yes, I believe in that. I go back and forth, but overall, at the end of the day, I believe in it. There is something that holds this team down. If they can get to the World Series, carry over that momentum from last year, and push past the NLCS to get to the World Series, half of the curse is broken. Momentum carries them through. Who knows? Maybe they even win it. That would be brilliant. That would break the whole thing. I'm just concerned right now about getting to the World Series. And I think this team, with the momentum they had last year, that feeling they felt after getting swept by Matt Rigby's Mets, will carry them through to the World Series. One can only hope. And finally, reason number 5, and this again goes back into that team chemistry factor. This team just doesn't really care anymore about the curse or anyone else who really beats down upon them. They just don't care. They're going out there and they're playing baseball, and they're trying to win. They're trying to, really even more so than 03 or 04 or 07 or 08, they are trying to get this city fired up even more than last year. And everybody was fired up because everybody was just shocked at how good this team was for finishing in third place with 97 wins. Everybody was blown away. And now everybody's all excited, and this team knows that. And that is what they are playing for. They are playing for the city of Chicago. Those Cub fans that are just desperate for a World Series, or at least a trip to the World Series. They are playing for that. And they're also just playing to play the game of baseball. Like Golden State, they're just playing to play the game of basketball and try to win. A light environment. That's what this team is doing. That is the core reason why I believe that this team will make the postseason and I hope get to the World Series. It's the 5 reasons why the Cubs win the World Series. Deep within my heart, I hope that they get to the World Series. We'll worry about winning it later. Just get to the World Series. Because this is such a close-knit group. It just feels like this has to be it. And I've been saying for the last 3 years now, 2016 is the year. The year they either make the World Series or they either win it, I don't know. But the Cubs will somehow, in my gut telling me this, they will get to the World Series because, like I said, I have that feeling that 2016 is the year. The pieces are there. The chemistry is there. Joe Madden. I forgot Joe Madden. How could I forget Joe Madden into this thing here? The guy puts on such a run with the Tampa Bay Rays, postseason after postseason after postseason, got him to a World Series, couldn't get it done because the Phillies were just so good that year. I think 100 wins that year, I believe. Or no, they might have had 96, 97, same with the Cubs. The Phillies just, they had it. They had it right. This year, Joe Madden leading another team with a star-studded lineup. Why not? Why not a World Series? Or why not at least a run to the World Series? If they come away empty-handed, like I said, that's okay. At least they made it now for the first time since 45. I don't even know a lot. That's over like 70 years, I guess, something like that. It's too long. Then they get to the World Series, that cuts that away. And then it's just getting the World Series title. Taste after taste after taste. You got a taste of the DS. You got a taste of the NLCS. Next thing is get to the World Series. Then get that World Series title. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun year in baseball. Like I said, I already have my 3 teams for sure that will make postseason representing each division. Mets in the East, Cubs in the Central, Giants in the West. And if that actually happens, this postseason will be, I don't know, like one of the greatest ever, I think. Just given, how the Mets are just loaded with so much talent and so much proven talent. The Giants, it's the even year. And every other even year this decade, they have gone to the World Series and won it. So,
I mean, the intrigue will be there, but one of the things that I really learned last year is that, and I mean this too, is that postseason baseball is just random noise. Like, it's just, I mean, the Cubs-Mets was a premier matchup on paper last year, but the series was terrible. I mean, it was totally lopsided. So,
of course.
Yeah, the intrigue will be there, but I always hesitate. I mean, to me, baseball's such a long season that, like, your reward is winning your division and making the playoffs. So, like, I'm comfortable predicting those things, but beyond that, I have no idea what will happen because, narratives don't make sense. They reverse. Daniel Murphy hits 9 home runs. I mean, any weird things happen. So SF
Austin comes away and it continues. Baylor collapses upon itself.
Right.
Sounds like the NCAA tournament.
The one thing that I think I might be able to trust in the playoffs is pitching. But even that, it's variable because it's tough to pitch as the stage increases with every round. The pressure becomes even greater. I mean, the pitcher in baseball is like the goalie in hockey. All attention's on you. So pitching can kind of wither away sometimes in big stages.
You got to be like Tim Howard. Got to be like Tim Howard in the World Cup a couple of years ago.
Tim Howard, they just announced he's
away.
Coming back to the MLS like an hour ago. Look at you. You're like...
How about that?
Tying things in brilliantly without even knowing it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that. You said goalie, and I think, Tim Howard.
Yeah.
That was, speaking of performances, and we're talking about the postseason, that was one of the greatest performances in all of sports that I've ever seen was
that
Tim Howard.
That single Belgium game was fantastic.
You can talk about Peyton Manning grinding it out to get a win, or Kurt Schilling. Okay, Kurt Schilling with a bloody sock in the postseason. That was also pretty good too. But honestly, think about Tim Howard and having to turn away, 15 shots or 16 shots, something like that. Just unbelievable. I can't even describe it. It's truly one of the more unrealistic and historical performances in a loss, too, that you may ever see in sports history was Tim Howard's performance in that World Cup. Just almost not even of this earth, to be fully honest with you. All right, enough of the rant. We got a baseball-loaded show today, actually. That's part one. We got the tournament out of the way. It's baseball the whole way. But first.
This is Delay of Game,
a sports talk podcast. Available on YouTube and online at thedelayofgamepodcast.wordpress.com.
Delay of game is going to the monitor and having a look at something controversial or crucial from the week in sports. It's under review.
All right, so we switch now from the North Siders of Chicago. We take a little trip down to the state penitentiary, right along to Dan Ryan, also known as U.S. Cellular Field, home to the Chicago White Sox. And if this team wasn't already bad to begin with to go into this year, yeah, I am kind of dogging on them. But let's be real. The Chicago White Sox, they are not, at least to me, expected to do much this year other than pretty much suck, I would think, at least in my opinion. They are, you have Adam LaRoche, great guy, and really a great designated hitter. And it's funny because I just looked on the White Sox depth chart, and he's still listed there, actually, as their designated hitter. But this team is going to be so bad this year. And I'd be shocked if they are better, I guess, than what they're expected to do. But now Adam LaRoche is gone, and I got to say, I certainly hope that this is the beginning of the end for Kenny Williams, because for whatever reason, they just keep thinking that he's okay doing his job there. And really, it's like, no, he's actually kind of not. Ever since he hired Robin Ventura, first season on the job, epic collapse in September, White Sox out, not even going to the postseason. And ever since, the White Sox just, fourth place, fifth place, bottom of the pile in the AL Central. And it looks like they could be doing that again. Now, when Chris Sale... Well, let me preface this by saying Adam LaRoche, those of you who don't know, has a very strong bond with his son, Drake, which I think is awesome. And it really is. Overall, in any aspect of sports, father-son sports bonds are great. Now, the White Sox basically told Adam LaRoche, hey, keep your son out of the locker room and out of the clubhouse a little bit more often now, please, thanks. And basically, Adam LaRoche was like, forget that.
You gotta be kidding me!
Yeah, I'm not doing that. See you later. And up and left. Up and... What, retired? It's retired, officially retired from baseball, which I thought was... You retire from baseball, but okay. I guess that really is the only way out. The team has control over your contract. They're not going to release you. So Adam LaRoche just decided to, take the high road and be like, all right, well, I'm done. See you later. And this is the second biggest, I guess, polarizing issue that we have seen in baseball this month. We'll get to this, to the primary polarizing topic later in the show. But this is polarizing topic number 2 in baseball. And I've seen responses that are on both sides of this issue, that the White Sox were wrong in what they did, and that Adam LaRoche was wrong in what he did. Clearly, the White Sox clubhouse and Chris Sale is siding with Adam LaRoche, and kind of rightfully so, because they're around one another more so than Kenny Williams is around the players day in and day out. And Chris Sale came out over the weekend and said that Kenny Williams, the general manager, I think, or the GM of the White Sox, told the players three different stories on why the decision was made to limit Drake LaRoche, Adam LaRoche's son, to access the team, to have access to the team, and all sorts of other stuff that that came with it. And LaRoche said somebody walked out. The famous quote that's flying off of this story here. Somebody walked out of those doors the other day, and it was the wrong guy. That's from Chris Sale, the White Sox ace. Honestly, now that I hear that, now it's kind of like, I don't know. I wouldn't side with Kenny Williams. Honestly, I thought it was I honestly didn't have any problems with Adam LaRoche at all doing this. I really didn't. Everybody's saying, well, no, the White Sox are right. Kenny Williams is right. Keep your son at it. Why? Why? Is it your child? No. Is that being a nuisance or anything? He's learning the game of baseball. Yeah! What's wrong with that? Maybe he could end up playing for your club one day when you need a good first baseman. The Nationals didn't have a problem with it. I don't see what the deal is. I do see an issue, though, more so with Kenny Williams telling three different stories, if that is what actually happened, according to Chris Sale. That I've got a problem with. It's this or it's not. That's the fact of that's. I can't even. I'm getting flustered again here. That's basically what it is. It's either this scenario or it's not. You either have a problem with it or you don't. And I guess Kenny Williams did. Chris Sale has a problem with Kenny Williams. So did Adam LaRoche. And, I'll give my props to Adam LaRoche all day. Matt?
I think it's an interesting dilemma because I understand both sides.
I do too.
It's a precedent thing, I think, for the White Sox. Mm-hmm. Like if, and I'll relate it. I'll take a broad view from a societal standpoint first, and say that there are very few jobs where it's acceptable to have your child with you in the workplace.
Oh, of course.
And I actually wouldn't put Major League Baseball into the category of jobs where it is acceptable.
Right.
It's not like commonly known that your son walks into the clubhouse with you every day. Now you talked about the father-son relationship being special with Adam LaRoche and his son, but I almost feel like there's a sense of entitlement from him to bring his son to the clubhouse every day, if that's the case. Mm-hmm. Your son's not on the team. Now this gets into an area that I'll circle back to where the big dissension was, did they ask him to, that came out a couple days later, did they ask him to limit it or stop it altogether? So I'll get to that in a minute. But so I get that from still on the White Sox standpoint. I get that decree, if you will, from a precedent standpoint, in that they don't, they can't have kids, if every player wanted to bring their kids to the clubhouse, they can't have kids running rampant in the clubhouse all the time. They're still a baseball team at the end of the day, and also it's not commonly acceptable in society, really in American society anyway, to bring your kid to work anyway. However, the Chris Sale stuff is really illuminating to all this because, and I think you hit on something appropriate, if the players don't have an issue with it. The other players outside of Adam LaRoche, what's the problem? You know,
Exactly.
now again, it's a precedent thing. I get that. I could get them saying, all right, well, they may not have a problem with one, but what if they have a problem with 25, you know, and then it keeps them from doing their job. But and I think Chris Sale's comment validates this, that the players themselves, who, if you're looking to limit a child from entering the clubhouse, it is with the best interest of the rest of the players, first and foremost. If they don't have a problem with it, then you're almost jumping ship on the whole thing. All that being said, this is a little bit of a snide comment, but like, I don't even think the White Sox care if Adam LaRoche walks out of the door, because he's been terrible for them. And for him, you know, if he wants to retire, I mean, he's made enough money, but like, had he entered any other industry, he probably wouldn't be able to bring his son to work every day. You know, it's just kind of part of it. Like, you go to work and your son doesn't go with you, you know? It's just how it is. So I mean, I see both sides. I really do. And again, I told you I would circle it back. I mean, I think it's a real contention point, or it's a real pivotal differentiation. It's really pivotal to get it accurate as to whether he, and this is where Chris Sale said he was told 2 or 3 different things, as to whether they asked him to limit the amount of time that his son Drake spent in the clubhouse, or cut it off completely. Now, Kenny Williams said they asked him to limit it.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Adam LaRoche said, no, they told me that my son wasn't permitted. So I think that's a little bit of the fogginess in the situation too, because if you said that it was elimination altogether, then you could kind of side a little more with LaRoche and say, well, the players really had no problem with it, so why do you have to put a hard, fast rule down for something that wasn't broken? If it was something where they just asked him to limit it, then you could put the hammer down a little bit more on Adam LaRoche and say, hey, man, you know, your kid can come to work with you sometimes, but, like, you're a baseball player and you're here to do a job. Like, you know, why are you bringing your kid every single day?
Right. So,
I mean, all in all, if you take another 2 steps back, I think it's an absurd issue. And I don't think it affects the White Sox. Like I said, I mean, I don't think they care about Adam LaRoche at this point. It's almost as if they said good riddance, you know? So, I think it's something we'll have forgotten about in a couple months.
Yeah, quite possibly. The only thing that the White Sox are now going to be looking for is essentially either a new first baseman or a new designated hitter. That's what situation they're in right now. So we'll see what happens with that. Moving now to the hotter topic in baseball. This is kind of cooled off, but there's no way I'm going to let this one go.
And now to a story about someone in the sports world who was just being too selfish or immature. It's time for...
It's your world, and we're just living in it.
Now... I'm sorry. I'm going to have to crank out the rant music here again, because this is just... This whole thing is... This is what my original rant topic was going to be, I don't know, for like the last 2 weeks. And then we had the tournament and I had the Cubs. But Goose Gossage, folks, is... In society, in sports society, a lot of people complain about old men associated with baseball complaining about the new generation and, you know, or not even just in baseball, in sports, in the NBA. Look at how much criticism Steph Curry got from old-timers in the NBA. Oscar Robertson, for example. That's Steph Curry. Get over it. Times change. Period. No more you need to say. Times change. Accept it. Move with it. Don't move against it. Move with it. And Goose Gossage couple weeks ago, in an interview with ESPN, essentially, he was asked about, what's going on right now in baseball. And for whatever reason, just went absolutely nuts on Jose Bautista going back to the bat flip to end all bat flips, as the end of all bat flips debate, bat flip, I should say, in the playoffs against the Rangers. Went off also on Yoenis Cespedes, and basically just dropped all sorts of F-bombs, and also talked about, all the nerds in baseball and how they're running the game and complaining about stats and blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. And, let's get back to the old days of just, generic baseball. Now, being somebody who's called a grandpa a lot, I couldn't be more infuriated with Goose Gossage comments than I was when I originally saw it. Now this stems from another hot button issue. They're all under the same category, but it stems from the original hot button issue, which was Bryce Harper talking about how he conducts himself in baseball and how people shouldn't have a problem with it. And, nobody should have an issue with how the new generation of, I guess, the new generation of baseball players, essentially, they shouldn't be criticized for what they do and how they conduct themselves. And, that pretty much, I'm trying to look up the Bryce Harper comments here, but he basically said, stop criticizing us for how we play the game. This is how it is now. And I can guarantee you, if this was during Goose Gossage's time playing baseball, I guarantee you that guys like Ty Cobb and players from the 1920s and then the 1900s would be complaining about how baseball was run in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. They'd be doing the same old complaining that the guys from the 60s and the 70s are doing right now. Wah. Bryce Harper this. Jose Bautista that. Yoenis Cespedes this. Blah, blah, blah. Wah. Boo-hoo. Complain, and more complaining.
You kidding me?
That's what it really is. That's what Goose Gossage is doing. He is being a 64-year-old former baseball player, grandpa man who's complaining about how the game is played nowadays, and we need to dial it back, and we need to stop acting like a bunch of machos and start respecting the game. Now, I understand the respect part. I completely understand that. Sometimes Bryce Harper acts like a you-know-what out there, and it gets me. So does, for example, Jose Fernandez. Or if you... Manny Machado, I don't know about that part. Machado... I don't really think Machado's that way. Adam Jones is also like Manny Machado. They have a different stance on baseball. They more so just don't enjoy the fact of the fans being fans, and that goes into a completely different rant. But it goes back to the unwritten rules of baseball and how you're supposed to follow those. That's what Bryce Harper's comments were, and that's what Goose Gossage is essentially defending. Goose Gossage is defending the unwritten rules. Bryce Harper is basically saying, hey, if they're not actually written rules, then we don't need to be following them or abiding by them or any other crap. And honestly, to an extent, Bryce Harper is correct. And that is what I have said for so long. If they are not written, don't complain. They need to be, if they are written, then we need to follow them, okay? That's the thing. That's why we have laws. If they are written and signed off and sealed, delivered, blah, 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 the whole shebang with laws and rules, we need to follow them, period. If they're not written, though, if they're unwritten rules, why do we need to follow them? That's the point. That's the whole thing of unwritten rules. You don't need to follow them. Now, the old men in baseball are saying, yeah, we need to follow them. My grandpa's closing in on 80 years old. He is not 80 years old. He will still be 60. And he doesn't care. He's getting into the stats, too. He's talking about the fundamentals, the simple, basic aspects of baseball. He doesn't... I've never heard him once complain about people with egos and staring down each other and admiring home runs and blah, blah, blah. I've never heard him talk about it because he doesn't care. Neither do I. And Goose Gossage complaining, this is what I had a problem with. Goose Gossage complaining about, all the nerds in baseball were concentrating on stats and this and blah, blah, blah. Goose, if you have a problem with that, you need to get out of baseball because that is where we are right now in this time frame of the game itself. That is one of the biggest reasons why this sport is so intriguing. Not just the bat flips, the home runs, etc. The stats, that is what essentially one of the biggest driving factors of this game nowadays. That's one of the reasons why this sport is still alive. Because of stats. Because they keep getting broken day in and day out. This person sets that record. This pitcher does that. This batter does this. It's unbelievable. It's fascinating. Now, Goose Gossage is coming from that macho, be a man, do the whole baseball, respect unwritten rules crap. That's all gone. That is pretty much essentially a dying concept in baseball. It is nowadays about ratings and numbers. I guess that's the same thing. Is that the same thing? Would you say that's the same thing, ratings and numbers? I think of ratings as, the attention, how much attention it's getting, and then numbers, I'm thinking about stats. So maybe I should specify that and say stats and the attention that the game is getting. That's what baseball is about nowadays. Plus, the game that's being put out on the field.
Well, it's strange because I think that's what we perceive it to be as. I mean, the idea, I think, amongst people like you and I that, someone can get buzzed or someone can pimp a home run and then get buzzed is arcane to us. We're like, this seems foolish, but it still happens.
Exactly.
Because I don't think that the culture will ever totally go away. And this is evidenced by the fact that, sure, you get what Bryce Harper says, but then you also got Mike Trout in response, who's on par with Bryce Harper as far as faces of the game. And Trout said that, he believes in the sanctimony of the game. So that whole idea of the sanctimony of the game is still there. And I think it's dumb, the idea of it, but it's also one of my favorite parts about baseball. I mean, is there any other sport
where like Noah Syndergaard throws up and in to Alcides Escobar in Game 3 of the World Series, knocks him down. And because the Mets open with the Royals this year, I have to worry about someone getting hit for 7 months.
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of a cool aspect of it. I mean, hockey's that way with fighting, I guess. You know, like you ask a hockey purist, they love fighting. They love the animosity built up, you know, because the rules allow it. And there's these, the unwritten rules allow it. And there's these unwritten rules in baseball you talked about. And I kind of like them. But I do think the idea of the sanctimony of the game, when people like Gossage go on rants about it, I think that the idea of it at that point becomes stupid. You know, it becomes stupid. And I get maybe where Goose Gossage is coming from because personally, I mean, myself, if I were a baseball player, I would never flip my bat. You know, I would hustle to first. You know, it's just kind of the way I am as a person. You know, I would never really have any histrionics. I would never really that way. You know, where I show. I mean, like I would show emotion. I'm a competitive person, but I was never one for boasting. You know, I was never one for
showing off.
Yeah, having to show off my exploits when they happen.
And that's really essentially the bottom line of this whole thing.
Right.
That's the underlying topic, is how you play the game of baseball and what you do in it shows how you were raised and how, I guess, mature and humble you are.
Sure. And I was always of the mentality that my reasons for playing, I thought Greg Popovich had a great line about Kawhi Leonard. I always go back to Greg Popovich. Everything he says is just gold. He was talking about Kawhi last night. He said, you know, Kawhi Leonard wants to be great, but he doesn't want to be famous. You know, he wants to be great more than he wants to be famous. That was kind of me too. You know, you want to be great, you're competitive, but you don't care about the theatrics that come with it and the attention and stuff. Now, and you're right, there is a division line. This is what this whole talk is about, is how you were raised, what it says about you, the way you conduct yourself in both success and failure on the baseball diamond. That does, like, if someone wants to do that, even though that's not me, if I'm on a team with someone who does that, I could care less. And it's actually kind of refreshing sometimes to change it up. It's just not my thing. So and again, I'm taking a while to make an overall point here. I understand where Gossage is coming from, but I would never, if I were him, because him and I probably see it similarly, I would never feel the need to go on a rant about players doing this, or this, because the sanctimony of the game is so dumb, number one. Number two, no one cares about what Goose Gossage has to say anymore. And number three, like, you're out of the game. Like, it's evolved. Just let it be what it is. Now, let me make one more final point, because when I read the article initially and listened to his quotes, the whole Jose Bautista, Yoenis Cespedes stuff didn't bother me. What bothered me is that he can be fundamentally wrong about, and I'm using air quotes here, the nerds changing the game. I mean, this is just a different way to look at baseball. It's taking, you know, Michael Dixon and I had this conversation when we called the Nebraska game together. Implementing all these different statistical trends and data analysis and stuff, it's taking everything that we did in Goose Gossage's time and looking at it more complex and delving into it deeper. And
breaking it all down.
Right, what is wrong with that? We didn't change the numbers. We're using the exact same numbers. Sometimes we're making more numbers off of that. But, like, you can't change the way baseball is played. We're not fundamentally changing the game. Like he said, baseball is 90 feet at a time and 60 feet 6 inches at a time. And it'll never change. It's the confines of the game are such that it can never change. So I had a problem with that stuff way more than I had a problem with him attacking the sanctimony of the game, because I think that is the moldy figs argument of baseball that needs to go away. Guys who think that the way it was played and the way it was statistically analyzed in their day is the only way that it can be, and so they totally denounce statistics. And this could get off in a totally separate tangent about the merits of sabermetrics in baseball and whatnot. But long story short, I had a problem with that element of what he said.
I'm just looking at another, and that was just the first. This part one of Goose Gossage rant, of his rant. Part two features, he doesn't like replay, and essentially said, and I quote, "What, do we want a bunch of Cam Newtons running around?" You know how racist that is? That is one of the more racist comments I have heard in sports in, God, I don't know how long, but man, just keep digging the hole there, Goose. Just keep on digging the hole, as I expect Yankees players to do anyway.
See, but I think part of this, too, though.
Go ahead.
I think part of this is that a lot of today's players don't care. I thought Yoenis's response was comical. I mean, I didn't because I don't really have a huge side in this issue, it doesn't fire me up quite as much.
Right.
I was more just laughing at what some of the people said, and they asked Yoenis how he felt about the specific element of Gossage's rant where he attacked players flipping the bat, and Yoenis said, "Goose Gossage, he's a pitcher, right?" And they said yes, and he was like, "Well, then that explains it." Pretty
much.
I don't think Yoenis cared at all. He was just like a pitcher complaining about me flipping the bat. Oh well.
And honestly, I can almost guarantee you, I bet Madison Bumgarner probably agreed with Goose Gossage.
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
And that's not a knock against Madison Bumgarner, because Madison Bumgarner, you don't want to mess with that dude. That dude cuts down trees in the offseason with an axe. And then he goes in the regular season and he whacks home runs every time he pitches, basically every fifth start.
You're right. He probably does agree with Goose Gossage, but that speaks to what I initially said about, this isn't totally gone out of baseball, but I think that the players are just a little more understanding for the most part of each other than they were 30 years ago, to where they're like, go ahead, like Chris Archer's very demonstrative on the mound when he strikes somebody out.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't see hitters,
So is Papelbon.
Yeah, you don't see hitters doing much about that. It's just an involved game, and it's fun, like I said, because, baseball's the only sport where this stupid stuff happens, but at the same time, it is stupid.
Yeah, exactly. That sums it all up right there. And the thing, now, some of you may be thinking, well, how you just said a couple weeks ago you can't have people doing this stuff. Okay. There is a difference between players doing stuff that is illegal, and I think back to all the sexual assault stuff surrounding college football players and college athletes in general. This is different. This in the MLB, this is just immaturity and being stupid. There's a different. I'm gonna go. Where is Doug's quote?
He's a smart kid. He's not stupid. He's stupid, but he's young. He's young stupid. He's not stupid. Alden Smith is stupid.
Exactly. College sports, pro sports. There is a difference between stupid, and then young stupid, or I couple immaturity factoring in with the young stupid. People mature at different points of their life, some sooner than others. But stupid is Adrian Peterson whipping his son, Ray Rice, knocking out his wife in an elevator because he's drunk. A Baylor football player sexually assaulting 5 women, or however many it was. And so on and so forth, doing things that are not just morally wrong and disgusting, but outrageous and illegal and inhumane, pretty much. In this topic, in baseball, with, for example, Jose Fernandez admiring his home run, or Alcides Escobar getting a fastball just whizzed right by him, or Anthony Rizzo getting plunked all the time and not responding. That's actually a sign of strong maturity. But the pitchers who are just, consistently hitting him and pulling him and trying to get a reaction out of him, that is young stupid or just immature stupid. That's what that is. That's what this whole thing is. Goose Gossage, he's tired of the young stupid. He wants, those players to mature up and actually play the game the way that they used to play it. And guess what? When you're dealing with immature stupid or young stupid, as Doug Lowry calls it, you're not going to get a change. You're not. It's almost impossible to get a change. Bryce Harper's not going to change. Yoenis Cespedes not going to change. Puig not going to change. Johnny Manziel not going to change. Now, Cam Newton is a completely different person. That's a whole side issue that we won't even worry about getting into, and we've already gotten into it. The point is, that's not going to change because that is immature stupid or young stupid. That's not stupid. That's not committing assault and battery. That's not committing a sexual assault. That's not getting a DUI. That's not, getting busted for smoking weed. That stuff is illegal and inhumane. This stuff in baseball, in football, in wherever, throwing it down and staring somebody in the face, since we're in March Madness right now, that is immature stupid. That is stuff that, we're going to dislike it, but that's not going to change because we can't really change that. That is on the person themselves. Things that are illegal and inhumane, as I've said, that has to change. That we have to make an effort to fix. It's going to happen.
I think it's interesting, though, because it's been a couple weeks removed now, but didn't the comment stem from a question he was asked about Aroldis? Because you're talking about illegal stupid, and I don't remember exactly what he said about Aroldis, but I think it had something to do with, maybe it was just about Aroldis pitching. But the funny thing about it is that none of Gossage's comments said anything about Aroldis should be this, or this because he literally committed a crime. He just started talking about sanctimony of the game instead, so it's funny. I mean, you have the avenue to speak, like you said, you're gonna take up all this airtime and airspace, attack an issue that's worthwhile,
I don't know. I'm trying to...
It was. I remember back now. It was about Aroldis. He was asked... I think he was asked a separate baseball question, but, you're asked about Aroldis Chapman. Why would you answer with anything but your opinion right now on what Aroldis did in the offseason and the fact that he's still going to be playing most of the year, talk about that instead of, someone flipping their bat.
Yeah. I'm looking back to the original ESPN article here. I finally found it. Now, and this is we'll have to talk about this another time, and because I want to know your thoughts, because we'll probably play this next week, or if not later. I want to hear Michael Dixon's thoughts on this too. About a year ago, myself, John Kipper, Connor Happer, Michael Snow, and Amsley and Brent, and I don't know if Devin was in on this or not, all discussed the debate of steroids in baseball. And Barry Bonds of whether or not he's a Hall of Famer, Mark McGwire, Hall of Famer, Sammy Sosa, Hall of Famer, steroid users who their outcomes were better than other steroid users, and they got the better numbers, therefore they should be the Hall of Famers. Why are we not inducting them into the Hall of Fame?
Yes, I think that's what I agree with that. I think they should all be in the Hall of Fame.
You do?
Yes, 100%.
That's I disagree with that wholeheartedly, and that's
you're a baseball purist.
But then why am I saying that I'm okay?
Right, you're beating yourself down. Yeah,
with the immaturity I use air quotes around that, that's going on in baseball with Fernandez and Harper.
You have to look yourself in the mirror.
That's right. See, that's where...
Are you a baseball purist or aren't you?
That's why I had... That was essentially what I was getting around to, is I'm asking you that question because I know you so well, and I know you know the game of baseball so well, and we have had numerous conversations. And that's why... Well, why am I nailing Goose Gossage for this, yet I am defending not having steroid users get into the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think it's irresponsible to label us. If you don't believe in allowing the steroid users in, then you're a baseball purist. I think that to put everything in either you're a baseball purist or you're a baseball modernist is unfair, because like, you look at the steroid issue, your reasonings are probably in that they cheated. They cheated the game itself, you know, like the results of the game itself. Whereas you're talking about this Gossage thing, it has nothing to do with the results of the game itself.
It's just stupid
now,
stuff.
Now, I think a lot of people
yeah.
would label you, because you and I just did the same thing in the last 3 minutes. We bundle, well, if you believe in this, you probably believe in this, this, and this. And so for you to have conflicting opinions, people are like, well, are you a purist or aren't you? You know, but like...
And then that brings up my argument. Well, why are we labeling people?
Right,
and I think I said that last week, too. Why are we labeling people? Let people believe whatever the hell they want to believe. Even in politics, too. I probably had this discussion with somebody earlier in the week. Why are we labeling people? People can believe whatever the heck they want to believe. Now, if it's something illegal and inhumane, then we got a problem.
Right. Simple as that.
But if it is something that, for example, I don't really care about, the immaturity of baseball, you can't control that, versus you can control the steroid thing and who's cheating and who gets into the Hall of Fame because they took advantage of that cheating system and became great because of it. That to me is a whole different thing. And we're kind of just getting off on a tangent here and derailing this whole show, essentially. But that's going to be something we got to discuss sometime in the future. And I want to hear what Michael Dixon's thoughts on that, too. And hopefully, not next week, but in 2 weeks, the day before the season begins, we will have a baseball podcast, hoping and praying for that, because Michael Dixon is he kind of owes me some airtime for not just baseball but also some basketball. Doug Lowry as well on that. So lots of things to get to, and just a fascinating conversation. This is why I love having conversations with you. We could go for hours on this stuff all day and every day. Oh man, what a long show. We're closing in on the end here. We got Props 2 coming up, but first,
you're listening to Delay of Game,
a sports talk podcast. On Facebook.com/delayofgame and on Twitter at DOG_podcast.
And of course, don't forget our website, the Delay of Game podcast.wordpress.com. We've got all of our shows up there. We've got the previous route shows that Brent and I did last year on there as well. Doug Lowry, no guest work podcast this week. He was too busy, and that's okay. Doug's a very busy guy. He works hard. And Brent, not here with us. He's coming back from Vegas. Jessica Chamberlain is in Vegas. Devin Cleach is in Iowa, because Iowa,
Oh my God!
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so next week, I don't know. I'm hoping Brent will be around. We'll see what happens next week, and we'll see what happens in the week of sports. We'll definitely evaluate our brackets at that time. But now, no predictions today, by the way, too. I don't even remember where we are as far as records go for predictions.
We'd have to go back a ways. I'll do it, though. I won't let that slip.
I know. Did you gather up not last week's, but the results from 2 weeks ago? I think Devin predicted for you.
Pick for me? No, I haven't done that yet. But once we do that, we'll be caught up.
Okay, sweet. So we'll get you that next week, and hopefully predictions as well at that time. But now, finally, after I'm done blabbing here,
time now for Props 2, the segment of the show where Delay of Game gives Props 2 someone or something Ryan Swanigan. Props 2.
So I finally finish off the people I'm giving props to who are in the play-by-play business still. I'm trying to get back into that, but it's going to be a little bit. I started off with Tommy Rezach getting a summer play-by-play job up in New Hampshire. Then Lane Grendel, he landed the Milwaukee Brewers number 3 play-by-play job just a couple weeks, maybe a month ago or so, I believe. Michael Dixon is going to be in the Carolinas doing summer baseball announcing there as well. Forest City Owls in, I think that's Western North Carolina. And finally, since he is here this week, I could say it to his face like a man. Props to the one and only Matt Rigby for landing a summer play-by-play job in, of all places, the league of all leagues, the Cape Cod League in Massachusetts.
I appreciate that. And, I was here for the first props to you did in this long line of props twos. But, and I said this at the time, but it bears repeating. And it's funny because Michael and I called the high school game together on Thursday. And we were talking about how this trickle-down effect has kind of occurred in the college since I took the Harwich job. And, I said to Michael, I said, I'm never going to pretend, because I was bemoaning the trickle-down effect a little bit, because sometimes it's tough to be the trailblazer and then see everyone follow you. Like when the first caveman made tools and they no longer had to run buffalo off the cliff to kill them. They probably sat down for a second and they were like, well, we blazed this trail, but now it's so much easier for everyone behind us, and so
right.
So I was bemoaning that aspect of it a little bit, but I was careful to mention to Michael that this all started with you, and it started with that conversation we had back in October. I'd obviously heard of the Cape Cod League, I'd heard of wooden bat leagues in general, but it never crossed my mind to try and call a summer's worth of games for them. And I think that it's been huge for me to network with some of the people in the summer bat league industry, because a lot of them have inroads into minor league baseball and into Major League Baseball even, and it'll be an extremely valuable experience for me, both from a connectivity standpoint as well as from a repetition standpoint this summer. And I owe it to you because you planted the seed in my mind, and it's something that you did this summer, and so I piggybacked off of you on that a little bit. And so I thank you for really including me in the last 2 years in all that you've done, including me a little bit last year, getting my feet wet, because without that, I'm not sure if I would have had the confidence that I've built up in the last year behind the mic. I'm not sure if I would have had the drive still. I think would have been the most important part. I think I might have gotten a little bit too dejected at times. So I'm indebted to you, Ryan, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, bud. It's my pleasure. And it all just goes back to my passion for play-by-play. And ever since I was, 3-4 years old, imitating, and I use air quotes around that, Mitch Holthus announcing Chiefs games and just, holding 2 markers with my hands, and that was the football team, playing offense, defense, and drawing that on my on a piece of paper in the kitchen of my old house in Papillion. That essentially was, through the next few years, a indicator that, hey, this is what you're going to be doing. And I didn't realize it until I got into high school that, all right, I'll try this out. And then when I got, to making the college decision, I had to find the one where I had the best opportunity, and that was at Nebraska. And the rest is history. And honestly, the Chillicothe thing, because that's where this is coming from with the summer wooden bat stuff, I don't even remember why I applied for it. I was just trying to secure a job after college, and I took the Chillicothe thing because it's like, it's a job, I'm going to take it. And it kind of bought me some time, and now I am where I am, producing for a news station here in Lincoln. But it just kind of delayed time, but it also taught me, this is what it's like for summer play-by-play baseball for wooden bat leagues, and this is the aspect of baseball and how you can get better. And I had no idea that there was, I knew of a couple leagues, the Northwoods, Cape Cod, Carolinas, and I found out about Alaska and stuff in the mountains in Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, etc. I didn't know that there was literally all over this country, league after league after league, and I'm very glad that I could open up the door for you and for Matt and for Tommy and hopefully others to build upon the talent that I know that they have, the play-by-play experience that I know they deserve, like you and Tommy and Michael and even others too. And I honestly, and I've said this before, I owe that to Michael Snow, because Michael Snow showed me the website to where I found the Chillicothe job and showed me about there's the California Winter League and announcing that, and you can do stuff in the summer, and it goes back to him too. So I owe it to him, you guys owe it to me, and it's just, that ever continuous cycle of thanking person after person.
I think it's good that you're giving props to all of us too, because speaking with Rick and some of the others in the college, we've taken strides in the last 6 months to land as many of these jobs as we can. I mean, we're starting to put initiative upon ourselves to turn this into a more sports-driven J school,
which is how it's
transitioning.
Yeah, and but more so too, just taking the initiative to bypass the issue of doing something, of not doing something in the summer. Actually, do something in the summer. Don't be like everybody else who's looking to get an internship. Go get a job where you can actually get experience and have fun, in being involved in the experience that you're getting, because you went and you got after it. You went and got that job to build your resume, to get you a good paying job, or more, just a good job out of college. That's essentially where we are in those terms, pretty much. All right. I'm blabbing so much here. Time for your turn.
Matt Rigby.
Props 2.
And no, that was not your props 2. So you got to find somebody else.
Okay. I always like to incorporate, you guys know this by now, I always like to incorporate some of my obscure sports fandoms into some of these props too and random facts segments. And this is an interesting, I don't know if it's necessarily a props too or just a lucky too. Props on being lucky too. But it's also a thankful props too. I've been a Formula One fan for almost my whole life. Actually been to the American Grand Prix a couple times, and it's something that I really talk about with no one because there aren't very many Formula One fans at all. It's something that my family and I have always kind of bonded over. And so the beginning of the Formula One calendar is today in America, but because they always start with the Australian Grand Prix, the race took place last night.
I saw this.
And you're right. And Fernando Alonso from Spain, who has driven for myriad teams in my, or myriad constructors, if you will, is what they refer to them as in Formula One, in my time as a fan, and has really been one of the great drivers in F1 in the past 15 years. He got in a devastating accident last night, and I recommend anyone who's listening to this to go look at the accident, look at the footage, because on first glance, and when I was watching the accident live, and my mother was actually watching it too. Her and I were texting about it at 1 or 2 in the morning. But when I was first watching it live, I thought I feared for the worst. I thought that there was no way that he could walk away without, major injuries if he did walk away at all from what happened in the wreck. I mean, the car, you said you saw it, Ryan. The car hit the guardrail and then almost ricocheted. I mean, you hate to put it this way, but it almost ricocheted like an air hockey puck would off the board.
Yeah, it was just sailing through the air.
And then when it was sailing, it hit the gravel and then totally disintegrated. And you were totally fearful for Fernando Alonso. in the end, Fernando Alonso walked away unscathed. He walked away from that accident. So props to, I guess if you could give props to someone, props to the engineers of the vehicle. Formula One vehicles keep getting better and better. I know that they're lauded for being more safety, or they're lauded for being more safely engineered than, say, a NASCAR vehicle, and the drivers are taken good care of, because in motorsports you're going to get accidents like that, and it was good to see that, because we've seen accidents like this happen in F1 over the past 5-6 years, but you haven't had any major catastrophes, and I think that's because they've taken major steps to ensure driver safety. So props to Fernando Alonso for walking away from that, and props to F1 for taking care of their drivers.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that and was like, whoa. Literally. And you see this stuff in NASCAR too, and it's just amazing to see these guys walk away, and very scary stuff. And so, yeah, definitely all the best to Alonso for that. That's going to do it for the show. No predictions this week again. We don't have Brent around, so we can't do it. We don't have a backup for him. So, plus the tournament's going on, so I guess that's kind of the ultimate prediction factor, I guess, if you will, right there. But anyways, that's going to do it for the show. Glad you could join us, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully with Brent. I'm guessing he'll be around. We'll see what happens, but may the madness not be too much on your mind as we go forward in the week. Just remember, unless you bet money, it's just, it's not going to kill you or anything. It shouldn't, at least. But crazier things have happened. We'll see you next week. Facebook.com/delayofgame. Twitter.com/DOG_podcast. The Delay of Game podcast.wordpress.com. See you next week. It's Delay of Game.